Welcome to UCF Knightline, your source for UCF sports and former player information.
Hello, Night Nation. This is Andrew Phegley coming to you from the 1148 studios. This is episode number 56. Always right beside me is
Trylko. Hello, everyone.
All right. Well, we had a little bit of a football game, if that's what you want to call it, last night, which would be Saturday. 30-16 loss in Philly to Temple.
Yep. Different week. Same result. An L. A week ago, trying to look glass half full, little tongue-in-cheek, I said UCF could still be bowl eligible. 1 week later, UCF is the first program that is kicked out of the 409 postseason bowl games with the 7th loss, first school to 7 losses, and not going to be bowl eligible. Where to begin?
I don't even know.
How about they were leading this game? Right?
Yeah.
How about they were not blown out of the water in the third quarter like has happened many times? They were leading on the road.
Yeah, and
what
they
is now
actually,
a top-ranked, top 25 ranked Temple team.
In that third quarter, they did not allow Temple to score.
Outscored them 3-0
as well. Yeah.
How about 4 turnovers?
Yeah.
How about some special teams play? How about a pick 6?
Yeah, an 81-yard pick 6 from Shaquille Griffin.
So let's start glass half full. There were some moments.
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot better than the UConn game the week before where there were no moments.
And I see there is a tad bit of improvement as far as defense and special teams go. I wouldn't say there's any improvement. We may have even taken a step back offensively. Not scoring
from the
week
game?
Before the week.
That's hard to
do. At least in the UConn game, we scored a touchdown. We didn't score any touchdowns except a defensive touchdown in this game, period.
True. But there were some positives, and we talked to former UCF quarterback Kyle Israel coming up about a few of those. But you're right.
Right.
Not a lot of offensive production.
The highlight of the game would be the 81-yard TD reception by Shaquille Griffin. Let's hear what he had to say about that.
The big thing with our team was turnover. And I was in the locker room today, and he was like, who's going to make the first play? And I was quick to raise my hand. And I ain't actually know I was going to get it today, but it happened. I'm glad it did. On the play, I just seen the receiver sit down, and I seen the quarterback scrambling out. And I know Trylko had me over the top of the other route, so I just kind of sat down. He threw it right to me. I seen it the whole way.
Yeah, you seen it the whole way.
I was very excited for him, and boy, he's got some speed. He just took right off.
Absolutely, yeah. It's great to see him. You know, he's struggled a couple times this year. You know, still struggled in this game a little bit. They moved him back from safety to corner a couple times. He was at corner in this one where he caught that interception.
An interception, by the way.
Finally.
We got an interception.
Finally. So that is a positive. That's definitely a positive thing going on. So, I don't know if it can get much worse than this.
Top 25 ranked Houston comes to town for homecoming at the Bright House Saturday, high noon. Dozens of seats still available. No, I mean, dozens of people will be there.
Dozens of people.
I hope fans turn out for homecoming.
Well, there wasn't much that I heard from George O'Leary on this loss. But I have a little bit, so let's hear the 30 seconds that I have.
Well, we got some turnovers. I thought the turning point in the game was when we got those turnovers down and deep, and we didn't get any points out of it. But I thought we played better in some situations, but not good enough, obviously. But I thought we created some turnovers. But when we get the ball there, we had opportunities. When you have opportunities, you got to put the ball in the end zone. We didn't do that. I think Temple defense is very good. I think our offense shot ourselves in the foot a number of times, and obviously we've seen Justin play a lot better.
Well, glass half full time again, Andrew. UCF net rushing yards 67 against Temple. Net yards passing 67 against Temple for 134.
That's weird.
And see that number 134? Those 120 somethings, 130. It sets up our Crunching the Numbers guy, John Swift, to share some very dismal numbers with UCF fans.
Welcome to Crunching the Numbers, featuring John Swift.
Hello, Knight fans. In this week's Crunching the Numbers, we'll focus on the offense. UCF is 126th in the nation in scoring offense, 127th in total offense, not surprisingly 127th in rushing offense. They're 350 yards behind the next worst team who's played 7 games. In fact, Georgia Southern averages more rushing yards per game than UCF has had all season through 7 games. We're 123rd in passing efficiency, 125th in passing yards per completion, number 125 in turnovers lost, 113th in time of possession, and 108th in red zone offense. It's been difficult to establish any bit of offense this season. Against Temple on first down, we averaged just 1 yard per attempt. Last time a UCF running back went for over 100 yards was 9 games ago against East Carolina, and that was William Stanback, who's no longer with the team. Last time a UCF QB threw for over 300 yards was 14 games ago, and that was against Temple and Justin Holman. Last time UCF was held to under 150 yards of offense, we have to go back 93 games ago on October 11, 2008 against Miami. UCF only had 78 yards of offense in that game. The Knights face an undefeated top 25 ranked Houston who has the number 34 ranked scoring defense in the nation. It could be tough sledding for the Knights. This is John Swift, and this has been Crunching the Numbers.
John Swift, I love you, but man, I don't know where you get this stuff. Like, these are numbers that, like, I have no idea where you find this stuff. It's awesome, man.
Hey, I got a number for you.
Really?
4.
Okay.
Teams that have not won a game. UCF, New Mexico State, North Texas, and do you know the 4th one?
That would be the University of Kansas.
One of the guys you sit with at the games suggested that the worst teams, should face off in a bowl game. I think people would watch that bowl game.
He actually, that was our friend Jeff, and he wanted it to be called the Toilet Bowl.
I agree with him.
Sponsored by, like, Charmin.
Why
or
not?
something like. Yeah, why not? Absolutely.
Why not? There's a bowl for everything else. Why not?
I think we've said that before.
What do you do there? UCF and Kansas in the Toilet Bowl.
That'd be great. What would I do? I'd have to, like, take a jersey and, like, cut it in half or something, and have the larger section, of course, be a little bit more Kansas than UCF. But
you know who's probably happy about this losing streak to some extent is that bar in Orlando that keeps giving away beer during games.
Getting great business. And, somebody explained it to me last week on the message boards or whatever of how they're recouping that money, because I felt bad for them. I don't feel bad for them anymore.
You felt bad for them. I didn't feel bad for them.
Yeah. I'm sure they're making some money. He was talking about, like, their food sales and all that other stuff is making up for it, which I understand that, I guess.
It's always better to have people in the
seats versus not. So
a contrast you may see Saturday during the homecoming game. Before we get to Kyle Israel, former UCF quarterback, a question for you. We saw Justin struggle against UConn and now on the road at Temple. But they were in the game, and I don't know that you can make a quarterback switch in that game when you're leading that game. Who starts on Saturday?
Number one, I don't think that Justin Holman is 100% by any means.
I agree with you.
We talk a little bit more with Kyle about this, but they did take him. They didn't take him out, but he came over at one point. The announcers pointed it out on the TV, saying that he went over to the sideline, kind of messing with that hand, and then they gave him a painkiller or ibuprofen or whatever and sent him back into the game. I just don't think that he's healthy. He hasn't done any better, really, than Bo Schneider or Tyler Harris, actually, in the games. I mean, he's not been the savior that some people thought he was going to. I said that he wouldn't be.
You didn't think that it was going to be the savior.
No, because you need other people around you. You need an offensive line that can show up. You need receivers that can catch the ball. I think, to be honest with you, if he's not 100% healthy, don't put him out there. I said this from the beginning earlier when we were talking about a possible medical red shirt for him. Because if we're going to have an 0-12 season, that's out the window now. That's not going to happen. It may not even have been going to happen then. But
you mean the medical red shirt? Yeah.
If he's not healthy, don't put him out there. Put somebody out there that gives us a chance.
So who would you start? Knowing what you know now as we record on the weekend.
It's difficult. I would probably to be honest with you, as much as it pains me to say it, I would like to see what Tyler Harris could do. I would like to see if Tyler Harris had the chance to start a game and finish it. I'd like to see what he could do. We've seen Bo start and finish games. Tyler Harris has showed some, brilliance in. He's the only one
a little spark.
Yes. He's the only one that we haven't seen start a game, though, and finish a game. We've seen him finish games and come out and throw touchdowns against, the 2s and the 3s. I want to see him against the number 1s. Start him. Why not? What are you going to lose, really? You're going to, we don't have anything to lose. We've pretty much lost it.
I know you and many of our fans have been critical about play calling. As we're talking about quarterbacks, who was lost in the action on Saturday was Nick Patty. Where was all the gadgety stuff?
Yeah.
Right? They completely abandoned any of that, right?
Yeah, they have. They've abandoned.
There's the one game where it's every play is that play, the Wild Night play,
and we bitched
play
about
after play after play. Now we don't do it at all.
We bitched about it being every play there for a while, and then now we're kind of in a way bitching about that they're not doing it at all. So I don't know.
What I'm just saying there is that you're looking for a spark where Justin is struggling in the game, and then you don't even go back to any of that. I don't know.
I think it's because we just can't run. Our offensive line, what's going to happen when you see Patty come out there for the Wild Night. You know that he's going to run it. He hardly ever throws it out of that. So he's going to run it. But we can't run the ball. We've abandoned the running game.
The most success we had was when Justin took off running.
Yeah, the stats here, give me a second to find them, but this game we did not hardly run.
Well, CJ
at all.
I've got that 19 carries for 37 yards, average 1.9.
Yeah, 19 carries. That's not very many in a game.
I think back to when we interviewed Kyle previewing the Stanford game, when we asked what the keys to victory might be after we had experienced the loss at home to FIU. And he said, it's a football thing, right? Rush for 150 yards. Well, how many games does it take us to get to that?
And we haven't done that yet. So, and that's one reason why you run to set up the pass. You run to set up play action pass. Play action pass is where it looks like a run play, and then all of a sudden you throw it. You can't do that if you don't have any running game, because they know we're just gonna come out passing, so they don't even, I don't know. It's just.
Well, it's been an interesting week. It culminates with the seventh loss to begin the season. But earlier in the week, the big news, of course, was head coach George O'Leary stepping down from the interim post as athletic director. You had a great conversation as an extra of the podcast for a good half hour with a friend of the program, UCFsports.com publisher Brandon Helwig, who just is immersed in all things UCF and is a wealth of knowledge. And he was a great guest with you, talking about that. If you haven't had a listen to it, go back and find
it. It's on YouTube.
It really is. It's a good...
exclusively on YouTube.
Look at the program. After a St. Petersburg Bowl victory a couple years back, I said to friends, and I thought that Coach O'Leary had taken the program as far as he could. Credit to him. And then the Fiesta Bowl year came. And then I said, you know what? I'm not going to criticize him. Put together a special season, and I'm not going to be critical of him. And I'll tell you, this week has left me a little bit torn. I wasn't part of that conversation with Brandon, and you talk about those things. I'm torn a little bit.
Sorry I left you out.
No, you did a great job with it, and it's a good listen. I listened to it on the way to work.
It was kind of impromptu kind of thing. We just kind of decided to do it.
My point is I'm torn because I do believe that he's been great for UCF and needs to be a part of our future as a face of this program. Whatever. I'm not talking about statues and field naming, but a kind of guy that can continue to court donors and just he's the most marketable thing that the program has besides being the next great thing with 63,000 students and that TV market and all of that. Besides that, he's the face. And then I look at our opponent this week, Houston, ranked in the top 25. And they had brought in the offensive coordinator from Ohio State. He's a younger guy, and they're off to such a great start. And I just wonder, okay, so if Coach O'Leary comes back, but for how long? It seemed like Steve Spurrier made that decision. It timed out the same way as this announcement on the stepping down Coach O'Leary from athletic director, where he says, I'm starting to hurt the program. And that's the part where I'm torn this week. Is his presence starting to hurt the program?
Absolutely.
Can he turn it around? And I know where you stand, a lot of our fans stand. I'm just torn. I think he's done a lot of great things, but will he make the decision that his presence is now more harmful to the program and to the recruiting?
I think it's obvious that he's the only one that's going to make that decision. They're not going to fire George O'Leary. They're just not. Hitt's not going to fire George O'Leary. But I would hope that George O'Leary would have the vision to maybe step down if he does not feel like he's helping the program anymore, like you're saying, as Steve Spurrier did. Steve Spurrier mentioned quite a few things in his speech after in his press conference.
UCF was one of the reasons he decided to do this.
Well, maybe he looked at what was going on in both programs, and
the essence was of that he felt when South Carolina was struggling against UCF. That may have been a sign that they weren't where they needed to be as a program.
Maybe George needs to take 0-7 as a sign and pack his bags and move on. I mean,
I wish I knew the answer to this question. Of course, I skimmed through the message boards, and it's a meltdown, and pull your booster dollars and cut off your season tickets and all that.
That's not going to help. None of that stuff is going to help.
Like we talked about the airplane. Okay, a little publicity stunt, but that's not going to help things.
Right.
And, there just aren't enough boosters, quite honestly. And Coach O'Leary has always played well with the people that contribute money, that appreciate from where the program was to where it is now. They knew a time when we were floating around as an independent and 1 AA levels, and now we're winning conference titles and bowl games and all of that great success that they know he plays a significant role in. And they've always appreciated the academic success of his teams and the program and what he's been able to build over a decade plus. They like him. Now, whether they turn on him is a different thing. Some anonymous posters on a message board not liking him, and I don't know whether they're donors or not, but there are only 4,000 donors, and most of those are not very big dollar donors. And those people, if they turn on him and convey that to President Hitt, I think there's a possibility. Again, though, I do think that it comes down to whether Coach O'Leary feels that he can still do it. But again, how long?
And even if Hitt has something to do with it, they're going to make it look like he's retiring, stepping down, whatever. They would never outright fire him. I mean, I'm wrong a lot, so if for some reason they would, more power to them, but I just don't think that's going to happen.
Speaking to a friend of mine today who's going to be a part of a bit of a focus group on what fans and alumni are interested in the next athletic director, what criteria and qualities, and we had a lively conversation about that. Now, I posed that question to you. If you were in that focus group this week and you were asked, what do you want in an athletic director? What qualities are you looking for? Because I felt like we got a renta AD in Stansbury. Of course, I do credit him for cleaning up the mess that Keith Tribble left behind and focusing on the academics and the new building that's being built by the stadium. So there are some things I credit him for, but I never felt like he was here for the long haul.
Okay, warning, this might be a little extreme, but this is what I would love to see from a new athletic director. I would love to see an athletic director, number one, that comes from a Power 5 conference, that knows what it's like to be the athletic director in one of those Power 5 conferences and knows what it takes and has the contacts and everything else to make that happen. Number two, this is the extreme part. I would love for that AD to come in here and clean house throughout all the programs that need to be the house cleaned, which being basketball, football, and baseball. The 3 biggest sports, the 3 head coaches all could go because they're not exactly winning programs in any of them. Baseball was a horrible, disappointment last year when they could have been a lot better. Basketball has been a horrible disappointment for a few years.
Hey, now, CBSSports.com has UCF ranked 257th preseason.
Out of how many?
I think 381.
There you go.
Or something. So give them their due.
But to go to a Power 5 conference or any other conference, really. I mean, in this conference is turning into some amazing stuff.
3 teams ranked
we
top
have
25.
got
Houston,
to be able
Temple,
to compete in all 3 of those sports in this conference or any other conference, and to allow coaches to have years upon years of failure is not appropriate. I don't believe. That's what I would like to see. That's what I would tell. It's all about wins. The athletic, the academic stuff has been great, but if it's winning or academics, I would take winning. To be honest with you, you can have both, but
you want to know what holds that back, though? Your proposition?
Money.
Yeah. Central Florida Future had an article this week. Coach O'Leary, 57th highest paid head coach among the 128. His base salary, $1.89 million. He's behind only Cincinnati's Tommy Tuberville in the conference. But I believe all of the SEC coaches are $4 million plus guys. Saban's $7 million at Alabama.
Don't build a building or something that you need to build and put it into the football coach.
But it's not
you can spread that out over a long period of time.
It's not only O'Leary's buyout, and forget the basketball and baseball. For sake of argument, we're going to leave them there. But you got to buy out football coaches, and he's raised base pay on those guys over the years, his most loyal guys. And Brent Keys do a good chunk of change with a buyout.
Well, they definitely need to get rid of him. He needs to be nowhere near this program after this year.
I remember a couple of weeks back
near it.
After the Furman meltdown, where it got heated in that conversation, and our conclusion was, though, that there weren't going to be any changes in the season, right? No, nothing's happened. Of course, we've seen programs fire coaches left and right lately.
Yep.
UCF has stayed the course, and of course we're now 0-7. But so a focus group called this week. They're going to start talking about what qualities are wanted in the next AD, and we now know for sure that Coach O'Leary will not be in that role.
Well, I hope a couple of those members of that focus group are listening, and they can pass on my wishes. That would be.
They will heed that.
Yeah, they can say Andrew from the Knightline podcast said.
Yes.
Yeah,
they'll take that right to the meeting.
I'm sure.
As much as I'm interested in what you have to say, I hang on your every word,
I know.
I also am very interested in what former UCF quarterback Kyle Israel has to say about the latest loss.
Welcome to Inside the Huddle with former UCF quarterback Kyle Israel, brought to you by the Little Greek Fresh Grill. Fresh, flavorful, fabulous. Waterford Lakes, 855 North Althea Trail, Orlando.
All right, please welcome Kyle Israel back to the show. Kyle, it's like Groundhog Day. We're talking about the same stuff each and every week. When are we going to win a game?
Well, I don't know if it's going to get any easier for us. It's certainly not in regards to our competition. It looks like, for one, the American Conference as a whole, you got to be proud of what these teams are doing. The Houston, Memphis, obviously was a huge win overall miss. So really a tough year to be struggling when it seems like the rest of the conference is really stepping up and kind of being great ambassadors for the American this season. But again, for us, a game that Temple tried to give away to us, really. And we just couldn't capitalize, and like you said, it's just kind of like Groundhog Day all over again.
Justin Holman, 10 of 31, 67 yards, 2 interceptions on the day. Coach O'Leary quoted in the Orlando Sentinel saying, quote, "He was as healthy as you or I was. He just didn't play very well. It didn't look like he was 100%. What did you see?"
Well, I was actually at the local restaurant and bar that was giving away all the free beer, trying to find some UCF fans that were excited. So I could not hear the commentators, but I did watch the game extremely closely, and it really looked like he's taken a step backward, in my opinion. And I don't know for sure. It's almost one of those things that you can't really put your finger on exactly what it is. Now, a guy that's as experienced as Justin and the success that he had last year leading us to a conference championship, you wonder how much of an impact having those 5 or 6 really strong wide receivers helped him last year. And I know that he's not getting as much help around him at all, and I almost feel like he looks like he's playing with the weight of the world on his shoulders in regards to the success of this football team. He seems like that he's having to carry the torch, and ultimately that's not something that you can do if you're a quarterback, or you shouldn't have to do. And so I think that's affecting the way that he's playing. You know, those stats are extremely pedestrian. Those just aren't good enough to win football games. Whoever your quarterback is, you're not going to win with 10 completions for 61 yards. It's just not going to happen. And I don't know what the issue is. We can speculate all day. He certainly doesn't have the talent, in my opinion, around him. But some of his balls that he was throwing were just very inaccurate. And you think about last year, the knock on Justin was really taking some velocity off of his passes. But accuracy, for the most part, was never an issue. And last night, he had some opportunities to hit open guys or guys that were as open as our guys are going to get, and he missed some crucial ones. So he's not playing very sharp right now. I know that he's going to want to play better, but if we're going to be a successful team, you know, I said it a couple of weeks ago, I thought Justin was the answer for at least us playing better football. And last week it wasn't horrible, but this week it was pretty bad.
I think a lot of this, there's not a stat for dropped balls. I mean, there's tons and tons and tons of times that he put the ball in the receiver's hands almost, and they weren't there to catch it, or they didn't catch it. Were we actually? I think we were. I think we were getting better quarterback play and better results from the two freshmen when they were playing, believe it or not.
When you look at the numbers, and I was with two former players last night, Rocky Ross and former tight end Corey Rapazinski, and we were all kind of sitting there saying, I think that Bo Schneider or Tyler gives us a better chance of winning this game. You know, I was surprised that Coach, you know, when a quarterback's not having success, Coach has always treated that position like any other and kind of changes things up. Now, obviously, you have a guy that led us to a conference championship in Justin, but the one thing that I regretted not saying last week on the podcast was mentioning those drops. I think we had 9 drops last week, 6 of those coming on third down. And that'll really make playing the quarterback position extremely difficult, not having confidence in the wide receivers. And then obviously there was the mistakes with the route running last week and the adjustments, and that plays to a quarterback's, that stays in a quarterback's mind as well. So I think that all of that right now is having effect on his confidence. Justin seems like a confident guy when you watch him in interviews and how he carries himself, but the youth around him, I think, is maybe putting too much pressure on him, and he's really pushing when on all reality, there's just not a whole lot more that he can do. I think when you think of UCF's offense in the past, even in the Blake Bortles days, and even for me, it was just get the ball in your athletes' hands and let them make plays. You know, that guy for me was Kevin Smith, obviously, but for Blake, he had all those wide receivers that he could throw to, and we found ways to get them the ball, and then they made a lot of plays. We just don't have those guys right now, and I think that creates some situations where Justin's trying to force the football and maybe not as confident getting the ball to those guys. So it was disappointing to see. I feel bad for Justin, honestly, but it's something that's going to have to improve. And I'm confident that that'll probably be the worst game that he'll ever play in his career, and he'll get better from here.
I hope so, but one thing that we haven't touched on yet, and we have in the past, because we still keep talking about the same stuff, is the offensive line play. The offensive line played atrociously. I can't even imagine being an offensive lineman and playing as bad as this line plays together. The center was playing horribly. There were a couple of miffed transfers between the center and the quarterback, and, you know, the snaps being low in the shotgun or just in the wrong position. But constantly there were guys getting around, not being blocked at all, and just teeing off on Holman. He didn't get sacked technically, but there were a lot of times where someone was completely unblocked, and even after he threw the ball away or whatever, were able to put him on the ground pretty hard. He did go off at one point, they said, and went over kind of holding his hand. The trainers looked at his hand, and then they gave him, you know, some kind of a painkiller or whatever, and he went back out. I don't know. Is the hand not right? Is it the offensive line? Is it people not catching the ball? It's all these things rolled into one that are putting so much pressure on him that there's no way, I don't think, that he could handle that. I don't think anybody could.
Well, it's a really tough situation. I mean, you can put the most experienced, best quarterback that you can find in the nation into our offense, And I'm not sure we still have more than one or two more victories than we do, just with the guys around them. And I know we've said that. The offensive line, in my opinion, is something that we're going to have to find ways to improve drastically this offseason. And I know Coach O'Leary doesn't like to go the junior college route as much as other teams, but we have to find some guys that can get some push at the point of attack. And honestly, guys, I've been around some really good offensive lines, and a lot of it is a mentality. I mean, ultimately, you got to know where to go, right? But the offensive line, you got to be able to grind it out, and you got to have a mindset that says, I'm going to be better than the guy across from me. I just think that the whole team offensively is kind of looking at each other, waiting for somebody else to step up, and that's just not happening. And, you guys bring me on here to do some analysis, and it's just so difficult to even figure out what to say about particular positions other than the fact that we just don't have flat-out talent to get it done at this point in time, whether that's the guys being too young at those positions or guys that just aren't going to get it done at this level of college football. I don't know. I really don't know any other way to describe what I'm watching other than just a sheer lack of talent. And when I'm talking to former players and we're all kind of trying to figure out what's going on, it's all the same thing. We're all coming up, with the same thing. I don't know for the life of me how we can be in Central Florida and not have better skill position players than we do right now. And if the guys that are at the skill positions are going to be good in the future, it's unfortunate that there's such a gap in that recruiting.
One of the things that I want to say that was a definite positive here, there was positive things that happened, yesterday. Shaquille Griffin, number 1, actually number 10, Shaquille Griffin, returned interception. Finally, we got an interception. We've been waiting for that all year. He returned that 81 yards for a touchdown.
Yep.
We had a couple of other special teams plays that were pretty impressive, actually. One miffed punt by them that we recovered. So I guess those are the things that are positive. The defense, I believe, kept us in the game, all the way up until the fourth quarter, to be honest with you. I think there is improvement there.
Yeah, I was sitting there watching the game, and I said, our defense is keeping us in this thing. And, talking to Rocky and some of those guys, our thing in the first quarter was like, our defense is playing well enough tonight that they're going to keep us in the ballgame until the fourth quarter. And if we can't figure out a way to score points up to that point, then our defense is going to wear out. And let's, you got to give Temple credit. Temple is a very talented football team. They're undefeated for a reason. They beat Penn State. They got a very, very good quarterback and some really tall, lengthy wide receivers. Now, I think that there are a couple plays that our DBs would like to have back where balls are just kind of right over their heads. One of the touchdowns in the back of the end zone to number 87. Number 24 for us just kind of ran under the ball and didn't try to make a play on it. I didn't see it, which I thought could have taken place. But I thought our defense made some big improvements, to be quite honest with you. And ultimately, going into the fourth quarter was a lead in that game. And then you just need a score or two, and you probably win that football game. And when it came time for us to move the sticks and get first downs and possess the football there in the fourth quarter, the offense just didn't have what it took. And that ultimately led to our demise and the loss. But I feel really good about how the defense played. I think they need to be commended for the way that they kept us in that game, because that is a very good tempo offense. And to hold them to 14 points up until the fourth quarter is very commendable. Albeit Temple did hurt themselves and shoot themselves in the foot with some turnovers, obviously. But when you look at, that's kind of how far we are away from being a good team right now, is when we have a team that gives us 4 turnovers and we can't really capitalize on them. That's pretty frustrating. But I'm happy and pleased with how the defense played for most of the game.
All right, using that as a segue, top 25 ranked Houston comes to town for homecoming at Bright House, and their quarterback, Grade Ward Jr., potent 71% of his passes he's completed, thrown for 9 touchdowns, also leads the team in rushing with another 14 touchdowns. So if we're going to be glass half full here and the team is improving on defense week to week maybe, how do they contain that guy and slow down Houston to keep it a competitive game?
Well, that's been one of the things that we've always struggled with at UCF, in my opinion, over the years, is quarterbacks that are athletes and can run around. And we're certainly going to have our handful with him. He's a great player. The offense for Houston is explosive. Their coach, coming from Ohio State, and what he's done at Houston is incredible itself. And I think that for us, we're going to have to figure out how to run the football. Are we going to completely contain him? No. But we got to find ways to possess the ball and possess it for periods of time and get first downs and put drives together just to keep that offense off the field. Because if we can't get first downs and we can't give our defense a break at times, it's going to be a long, long day for us defensively. And so with him, you just got to figure out ways to contain the guy. You may see some more blitz packages or things coming off the edge to keep him in the pocket. But he's also a guy that can sit back there and throw it, and that's why he's kind of a dark horse Heisman contender right now. Now, doesn't have all the numbers that some of these guys have as far as touchdown passes, but he is a guy that's going to make it very difficult for us to win that game, and we're going to have a game plan geared to keeping him in the pocket and go from there.
As the Knightline podcast has evolved as a program of record for UCF sports, looking back at the week that was, it would be remiss of us if we did not mention the news earlier in the week that George O'Leary decided athletic director was not the right role for him. It comes at a time when Steve Spurrier announces his retirement or resignation, if you will, and steps down. You had said something a few weeks back concerned that maybe George O'Leary was losing this team. How does this play out? Can he continue to lead this program, lead this team, be a factor in recruiting? How does he turn things around and get the fan base, parts of it anyway, back on his side?
Well, I don't know, guys, if you can do that without winning games. And I think that right now it's going to be difficult just in the state where we're at to win any games this season, flat out. For him, it was interesting this week, with the interview that he did with Mike Bianchi of the Sentinel and of 740, saying that he was going to evaluate whether or not his age and, his tenure in regards to it not being certain is affecting recruiting at all. Now, I can tell you 100% that there's coaches all across the country that are recruiting against us saying, why do you want to go to UCF if you're not sure how long George O'Leary is going to be there? And why do you want to go to UCF, especially after this type of season? And I think that is a valid argument. Yes, he has a contract through 2020, but now at Coach O'Leary's age, it's kind of a year-by-year type of deal. And I've had people come up to me and say, yeah, but kids commit to the school, not the coaching staffs. Well, you're out of your mind if you don't think that coaching staffs are what these players are considering at least a huge aspect of the recruiting process, obviously. You also kind of wonder where the assistant coaches' mindsets are at. Are they thinking about their future? Are they going to start interviewing for other opportunities? There's just a lot of moving parts when you don't have a coach coming out and saying whether or not he intends to stay for another season or whether or not he's going to hang it up. And ultimately, at this point in time, to think the coach would work through his contract in 2020, I don't know that that's going to happen. So any player coming into UCF would truly have to be looking at the program outside of the coach, because I can't believe in my mind that Coach O'Leary would be coaching for another 4 to 5 years here throughout the tenure of a recruit in this year's class, and I think that's something that needs to be considered. But to turn it around and get the fans back on your side, he's going to, announce that he's retiring, and I think that everybody will step back and say, okay, let's move forward. Thank you, Coach O'Leary, for everything that you've done. But you ultimately got to win some of these football games coming up. And I know that Coach O'Leary is not a guy that's going to quit. He loves competition, and he's going to try to get this football team ready to win games.
One final question. I'm going to put you on the spot again. What would you say to this team to get them to turn things around and to get them just after this week? What would you say to them going into this Houston game?
Well, I would say number one, it's homecoming, and we've been very good in homecomings in years past. You always want to defend the home field. That's our stadium. We played very well in that stadium, and so I would challenge them and say, hey, at the very minimum, number one, we got to go out and win a football game. We were beating Temple, an undefeated team, 16-14 in the fourth quarter. We were in that football game. We weren't getting blown out, and we got to carry over some of the momentum from that game. Number two, now I'm not going to talk to, if I'm coming from like a other player, like I'm a teammate, not in a coaching position, I would be thinking and saying in my mind, hey guys, you need to consider the fact that there is more of a possibility now than people would have ever imagined going into the season that there may be a new coaching regime coming in at some point in the near future. I don't know if that's going to happen or not. I'm just speculating. If that's the case, that new coaching staff is going to come in here and look at all the film from 2015 and figure out who the guys on our team are that they can count on for the future. So, yes, you got to play for this year, and you got to play to win this game. But if I'm a teammate and I'm looking around at what my future is with this program, it's certainly a little bit in the back of my mind to say, I may have somebody evaluating this film that may directly affect my future of being on the football field, and that person's not going to know anything about me other than what they see on this film. And that would be motivation to me as a player enough in itself. But the fact that you're playing at home, the fact that it's homecoming, the fact that you're going to want to knock off a top 25 team, the fact that we were what Houston is to this day the last couple of seasons, we need to have some pride in taking that back. And I think just like we beat Houston in 2009 or 2010 when they were ranked, we beat them at home. That was a huge win for that program at that time. I think it was the first time that we had beat a ranked team in our history. It'd be exciting to see if we can make something like that happen again.
Absolutely, and the games with Houston the last couple of years have been down to the wire. The last couple of games, so you never know. I mean, it could turn out to be like that again. You never know. What's going on at the Little Greek this week?
Not a whole lot new. We still appreciated all the support. We've gone 3 weeks in a row, breaking our records and our goals that we've had for us as far as number of people through the door and as far as sales are concerned. So we certainly appreciate the support. We will be participating later in November in the Taste of Orlando. That'll be right here at the Waterford Lakes Town Center that you can buy tickets for as well. On our website and at the Waterford Lakes Town Center website. But that's a great event. And then on Halloween, we're going to be we'll be one of the members that's going to be handing out candy. And this is a great environment for little kids and families to come out and trick or treat in a lit, safe, friendly environment. We'll be handing out candy out here on our patio. So we're just kind of gearing up for the holiday season right now.
Alrighty, thank you very much for the insight again. We really appreciate you being on here for us. I know that it's difficult to do this when we don't have a lot to say, and you're doing a great job for us, and we greatly appreciate it. We'll talk to you next week.
All right, thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Well, after 7 weeks, Andrew, the American is now 7-12 against Power 5 teams. How about Memphis? 6-0. They beat formerly ranked number 13 Ole Miss 37-24. And that's a pretty strong win for Memphis and the league. Our opponent this week, then 24, now 21 Houston, moved to 6-0, 42-7 over Tulane. By the way, that's the same Tulane team that scored 45 on us. East Carolina beat Tulsa 30-17. No trophy at stake. South Florida beats UConn 28-20. Probably the worst loss, though, was Cincinnati. They led BYU, gave up 21 fourth-quarter points, and then BYU cruised to a 38-24 victory. Coming up, Week 8, Temple tries to stay undefeated. Goes to East Carolina Thursday night. Memphis also wants to avoid a loss Friday night at Tulsa. And Tulane is at Navy. SMU is in Tampa. UConn goes to Cincinnati.
I think it's an unbelievable year for the American. I mean,
agreed.
And it's very unfortunate that the marquee team of that league is no longer,
not this year.
I mean, we're not even. It's crazy. I mean, it would be great if all of the teams were playing that good, but we're not. So
whether you're at Bright House Saturday at noon for homecoming, or you're watching on TV, or you're watching over at that bar that gives out all the free beer, get ready to watch the show because Houston, boy, they put up a lot of points. They're potent.
They do.
5 questions with an insider, getting to know this week's opponent.
Back in July, we welcomed our next guest to the Knightline podcast when a column he wrote made headlines for saying UCF is a must-have in any Big 12 expansion plans. Jay Saunders is a 15-year journalist, a columnist at football.com, and a Houston insider. Welcome back, Jay.
Hey, thanks, guys. I appreciate you having me back.
Well, it's been a tale of 2 different seasons for Houston and UCF. UCF hasn't won a game, and Houston is 6-0 and ranked in the top 25, all with a new head coach. Talk about what former Ohio State offensive coordinator Tom Herndon has brought to the Cougars in his very first year as head coach.
Pixie dust? I got to tell you, there's some sort of magic with this guy where this team seems to be able to do no wrong. You look back a year ago and they were on a roll for a little while, and then you were just waiting for the other shoe to drop. And even in games where you thought they were going to win last year, they stumble. And I've caught myself checking the scoreboard, to see if maybe that's going to happen again this year. But there is something about Tom Herman and this staff that he's brought in. Maybe it's the winning, maybe it's the experience, maybe it's the know-how. This team, with a lot of the same guys from a year ago, it just looks totally different.
Well, one of those guys that has been a standout quarterback, Greg Ward Jr., led a potent attack so far. He's completed 71% of his passes, thrown for 9 TDs, and that's not to mention leading the team in rushing with another 14 touchdowns. Seems he is hard to contain.
This guy, talk about 2 different seasons. Last year he was, plucked from the wide receivers room and, placed into the starting quarterback when John O'Korn was having problems. Again, this is a combination of him appearing to be more comfortable in his role, and it doesn't hurt that he has as his head coach the guy they nicknamed the quarterback whisperer, Tom Herman, who, clearly last year at Ohio State, no Braxton Miller? That's okay. No J.T. Barrett? That's okay. Who's this Cardale Jones guy? We'll just throw him in there and he'll win a national championship. But then you've also got an offensive coordinator, Major Applewhite, who was, a star at Texas. So with the combination of the coaching and getting comfortable with what he's doing, this kid is as the human highlight reel. Anytime, a couple weeks ago, he was tied with Leonard Fournette of LSU for most rushing touchdowns in the country. And anytime you are in the same conversation this season with Leonard Fournette, you know that you're doing something right.
Lots of wideout threats for the Cougars. Tell us about DeMarcus Ayers and the wide receivers.
DeMarcus Ayers obviously gets some headlines because he's the go-to guy for Greg Ward. And they've also got him involved in the rushing game, and he's their punt returner. So you see DeMarcus Ayers, quite a bit. He has become a lot of people try to draw comparisons to Ohio State. He's the Braxton Miller for the Cougars, the guy that they try to involve in every phase of the game because he's one of their best. He's one of their best players. Tom Herman likes to get as many touches as possible to his game breakers. So that's why you see so much of DeMarcus Ayers, and Greg Ward looks to him a lot. One guy that doesn't get a whole lot of attention, mostly because he just came over this year, is Chance Allen. He's a transfer from Oregon. A good receiver, good possession guy. He scored Houston's first touchdown on the first play of the game last week against Tulane on a 49-yard burner, where a combination of him beating his defender and the defender tripping up a little bit. But Chance Allen's a really good receiver, and those guys are those two really seem to help Ward as he continues to learn to be a quarterback.
Houston puts up a lot of points. They can give up quite a few, too. Where's the defense halfway through the season, and could that be the Achilles heel in some of these tough second half of the season matchups?
I don't know if Achilles heel is a good way to describe the defense. They are a bit of a bend but don't break bunch. They're attacking, they're physical, they're ball hawking, and so when you have a system like that, when the goal is to go after the ball whenever possible, you give up some big chunks. Now, when you look down the line for Houston, you see Memphis and Cincinnati and teams that just chuck the ball up and down the field. So that could hurt them down the line. But I think whenever you play a team like that, one might assume they would change things up a little bit. But where this defense is halfway through, I think they're where they were, season ago. They force a ton of turnovers, 2+ a game. Adrian McDonald leads the way there. He is literally everywhere. You're going to hear the name Adrian McDonald, whether it's on a tackle or a pass breakup or a forced fumble or safety help. on a corner. You guys are going to hear the name. You're going to get sick of hearing his name from Saturday because he's everywhere. Against SMU, SMU and Houston were tight, going in towards the end of the first half, and all of a sudden McDonald got an interception, forced a fumble, Houston rolls. So it's a very attacking style defense, and like I said, because of that, you'll give up some big chunks of yardage and some big plays. If they can avoid a lot of that, I see no reason why the defense couldn't be, couldn't stop teams like Cincinnati and Memphis, going forward.
Well, as you've mentioned already, some tough games highlight Houston's upcoming schedule, including dates with Cincinnati, Memphis, and Navy. After it all settles, who wins the American West?
I'm going to stick with what I said at the beginning of the year, and that's Navy. And as much as I think Houston is, a really, really good team, and there are a lot of there's a lot of football left to be played. Navy has that element of surprise. None of these American teams have seen Navy consistently. This will be, for most of the teams, their defense's first look at that old school triple option. And I think it's going to catch a lot of teams off guard, and Navy could very easily run the table in the American. Or I could look foolish and they lose 3 games. But that's a team that knows that, clearly it's very disciplined. They've had success in games big, small, and medium in the past, and they will catch teams off guard with that old school option attack.
Well, Jay, thank you very much for joining us. It was a pleasure to have you back on again. Good luck to Houston this week, and hopefully, like I've been telling the last few guys, hopefully we can just have a decent game that'll be entertaining for the fans and keep them there, and, who knows what's going to happen. It is Houston, UCF.
You'll definitely see a show offensively Saturday, that's for sure. This is quite an offense Houston's put together.
All righty. Thank you very much for joining us again.
Thank you, guys. Take care.
All right, prediction time, but credit to you. You had Temple 44-14. Final was 30-16. I had them 45-12, so good for you. What do you got this week?
40-12.
Who?
Houston.
Sorry. I've got 47-13. But honest to goodness, based on what I've seen of Houston this year, I think they could put 50-plus on them.
I say 12 because I think it's going to be all field goals.
4 field goals?
Yep. I don't think we're going to score a touchdown offensively or defensively.
You know who does score touchdowns? Blake Bortles threw 3 Sunday.
And 3 interceptions.
Well, I didn't want
But how many yards did he have?
330 or something?
Yeah, that was a lot.
He got picked by A.J. Bouye.
Oh, wow. Isn't that crazy?
You had mentioned last week or whatever that head gotten sacked
almost
recently.
Yeah. Almost by Clayton Geathers.
Yeah. So he's helping out his former UCF guys there.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a good thing to do that, but...
Brandon Marshall with a big game for the Jets, 111 yards and a touchdown. Matt Prater kicking for Detroit with a game-winning field goal in overtime. So those UCF guys are doing pretty good in the NFL.
Did the Raiders play today?
I think they had a bye week.
Okay, I was wondering about Latavius, but I don't know what more we really want to talk about here today,
except a couple of news and notes.
Yeah, news and notes. That's what I was going for. It gets harder and harder to do this every week, but we want to give our insight and all that. So
I mentioned last week that at the beginning that it was sort of group therapy.
I'm
hoping that as people listen at work or on the treadmill or driving that they nod along or disagree. And
it is, yeah.
You got to get out of your system somewhere, and you can't just type it into a message board all day long.
Yeah.
You got to be able to think about it and listen to some sound and
I
talk about it.
totally appreciate everybody that does listen, and I appreciate the people that comment with me on Twitter and on the message boards and all that stuff.
We keep picking up Twitter followers.
Yeah.
I like it. It's interesting to watch them engage and throw ideas out.
I'm sorry yesterday I didn't do the Twitter thing. I actually, believe it or not, was not watching the game. I was at a concert So I was watching the game on, the score and everything on my phone, and then came home and watched it today before we did this and whatever. So anyway, you can call us and leave a message. Leave a question, a comment, whatever. 407-205-7427, 407-205-7427. 407-205-7427, and we would appreciate
caller
that.
Gets a. You got some prizes.
I do have some stuff.
A lot of people give away a couple of those things.
I have some stuff. I
some
would.
Swag.
That is what I will do. If somebody calls us and leaves a question, you will get something from me somehow.
Knightline Podcast swag. Leave your address.
I'm not going to tell you what.
Yeah,
because
we'll drop it in the mail.
Yeah, I got stuff at the beginning of for the first game this year, and I keep saying on Twitter, if you come by and see us, I'll give you something, and nobody ever comes by. Every once in a while, somebody does.
They talk to you, but they just don't come by.
Yeah, but I thought that those things would have gone really fast. But I do have some swag, so you all need to do something to get it. Anyway, now time for news and notes, I think.
And now, news and notes from the world of UCF sports.
Junior golfer Ashley Holder finished in a tie for 20th at the Sumitra Tours IOA Golf Classic.
I love how I give you the ones that Jim butcher. Men's soccer dropped a 2-1 match at UConn Saturday. That followed a 2-1 win over Stetson Tuesday. Next up, the Knights take on the SFU Cows over in Tampa Wednesday night.
Softball tied for 11th in the nation academically with a team GPA of 3.509.
Good for them. From women's basketball, junior guard Sakira Lewis was named the College Sports Madness preseason all-conference second team. Sophomore Aliyah Gregory selected to the fourth team.
Cross country finished 6th out of 10 Division I programs in the USF Invitational in Tampa. 3 runners had top 30 finishes in the 6-kilometer race. Up next, the American Championships begin Friday at Grimesland, North Carolina.
Never heard of that place.
I haven't either.
Women's soccer wins 3-2 at Houston Sunday afternoon, just days after forward Carol Rodriguez's third straight game winner helped the Knights to a 2-1 win over SMU Friday. Up next, UCF closes out the regular season with that Tampa school. The Moo Cows come to Orlando Friday night at home at 7.
Women's tennis posted singles and double victories all weekend at the Bedford Cup in Fort Myers. Up next, the ITA Regionals begin Thursday in Athens, Georgia.
Shout out to my friends, the Lanes, who joined me for volleyball this Sunday. They lose 3-1 against Tulsa. This followed a 3-2 loss to SMU Friday. Up next, rivalry game with the Cows from Tampa. Wednesday night at home at 7.
Week 3 of fall baseball practices concluded for the UCF Knights this week. Up next, draft-eligible players to get to showcase their talents to Major League Scouts on Tuesday as juniors and seniors complete an intra-squad scrimmage.
Men's golf began a 3-day tournament that it's also hosting. The Tavistock Collegiate Invitational at Isleworth Golf and Country Club is ongoing.
Men's tennis wrapped up play at the regional in Gainesville, with a pair of Knights advancing to the round of 32. That's great.
Good for them. A lot of sports this week.
A lot of sports.
Yeah, a lot going on.
Some winning, some not. All right, so I think that's going to do it for us. This has been episode number 56. I'm Andrew Phegley.
I'm Trey Trylko. Happy homecoming. Go Knights.
Charge on.
UCF Knights. UCF, let's go Knights. UCF, charge on to the field. With our spirits, we'll never yield. Black and gold, charge right through the line. Victory is our cry. B-S-E-T-O-R-Y. 2 9 or 9s will